We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast. And we're going through the powerful video library. And we've gone through all 29 of the first one. And, when you go through, so that's 30 weeks. This is our 30th week on this. And it's about the educational system on trial. So I'm very interested in hearing the feedback from people on this. I have a feeling, okay. And I don't know, Dale, did you know that your feelings were important?
Uh, I suppose so.
Yeah, he's like, is that a trick question mark? It's like, so I was 59 years old, and my son and my brother both told me at the same time my feelings, like two separate, like that my feelings were important. And I'm like, huh. And so I have a feeling, and my feelings are important, that there might be some people who watch this podcast who might not, like they may get their feelings hurt.
Oh.
And I
Mm-hmm.
want to be very I want to be very considerate of, people whose feelings are really, really important. So if you have one of those, this podcast could get a bit sassy. Like it just could.
Yeah, I
So
didn't think about it. Didn't think my feelings got hurt. I just thought it was a very logical video.
right. Melissa's like, don't even feed the monster. Like you have no idea. Like don't. Oh my goodness! Like we're crackling up. We're losing connection here. I don't know what happened. Okay. So what'd you think about the video, Dale?
I thought it was a very good perspective. Like everything else has changed over all these years, and the schooling system hasn't changed, and nobody has, I guess, really thought it through how to change it. It's just one of those things they kept it that way. I know there's a lot more depth to it than I could retrieve out of it, but that's the 30,000 viewpoint that I got out of it.
Did anybody else watch the video? I'm not saying I'd expect that because it's like 5 minutes and 20 seconds. I know you guys is, last week, 10,080 minutes. It's like, man, Mark, you want us to go ahead and find five
Didn't we
minutes?
just get the email?
What's that?
Didn't we just get the email?
That would have been, yesterday. But you do know after 29 is 30.
I watched it.
There you
Okay.
go, Mom. Good
So
job, Mom.
yeah, all it takes is one of a certain gender to do something, and the whole gender, you're like, yay. Go ahead.
Wow. Wow, that was sexist in every way possible.
He's a little spicy this morning.
I can tell. Do you know what Kaya said as soon as she get on? She goes, "Grandpa's spicy."
Right. Right.
That's for sure. So yeah, I watched it. I thought that, part of that was why we homeschooled our kids. Because I felt that, they were just being put in a classroom to try to feed them knowledge, but not actually let them practice it.
Got it. Any challenges with the video?
I watched it twice just to try to see if I can get more out of it, and I came up with no challenges.
Oh,
Somebody's trying to one up everybody else.
I did. Just want to make sure Mark's happy this morning.
Oh, that's good. That's good. At least somebody's doing that. That's very considerate.
What's that look for?
yeah, I appreciate all the attention. So by, I don't know, 10, 15, probably maybe 20 years ago. Yeah, it was 20 years ago. Over 20 years ago. Somebody in passing said, Mark, you ought to read a Thomas Jefferson education. And I'm like, okay. They said it's the history of the educational system. So I read that book. Um, and so for the last 20 years, I've been thinking how, when Dale said nobody, he didn't mean Mark's a nobody. He didn't mean that. Like he's just getting to know me. Like nobody's thinking about like, so I thought, how do I change the educational system in America and around the world? So, I don't know what all you think about the Ivy League colleges, but I'll be honest, I kind of struggle with them a little bit, especially now where it's like, do you guys have any common sense at all? But this was done. These are the 10 things that the Harvard uh, School of Law um, came up with that are required to be successful in the 21st century. And so my youngest son, Tim, and I did um, a, a 10-week podcast, Tom Coon, on the on each of these lessons. So the first one is the ability to define problems without a guide. I'm like, man, those dudes there at Harvard, I haven't been giving them enough credit. But then in the American, I don't know what it is in the Amish. Um, I think the Amish have a far superior educational system than the English do. And so in the Amish, not all, but many of the Amish will stop their education at eighth grade. And I think that's just a brilliant strategy. I didn't even know that was an option in eighth grade. If I didn't know that was an option, I would have converted to being an Amish without question. Like, you can do that, mom and dad, let's become Amish. I'm serious. I did not like school. Anyways, so I think what happens in the Amish, not all Amish, but my experience in the Amish world, they're more hungry for knowledge than in the English. And so I think it's almost like they feel gypped or something, like we didn't get everything in school that we could have. So the rest of their life, they're actually lifelong learners. Like and they can pick up anything. They're not intimidated by anything. It's cool. And so in the American school system, what do you do when you first go into every class?
You do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, and then what else?
You sit at your desk.
When you get
Get your
going
stuff.
to a new class, they give you a syllabus. So syllabus is, what the course is about. What's the objective of the course? So it defines everything for you. When you go through 12 to 16 plus years of doing that, so I thought like 20 years, how cool would it be for me to become a university professor and go ahead and say, give here's your syllabus and have a blank sheet of paper. All the A and B students would go freaky. They'd be like, they'd be meltdown, trauma. But the C and D students, Ross Perot, billionaire, he was speaking at a commencement one, and and he said, I want all the people here that were celebrating, all the A and B students, can you stand up, please? And so they stood up and pushing their chests out and like they're really smart. It's like, okay, very good. Now sit down. He said, now all the D students, can you all stand up? So they reluctantly kind of stand up, the D students. He said, all right, all you A and B students, I want you to look, this is your future employer. Pretty interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So the smart people, the one who are good, IQ, high IQ and intellectual intelligence often have low EQ, emotional intelligence. So it's like teaching people how, like I do a great course on teaching people, like you got to figure out how to get an A in this class. First thing you got to do is figure out what the class is about. You got to learn how to ask questions. Then I'd be like, what do you want the class to be about? They'd never have a class ever in their whole life that they had like they had with me. Number two is the ability to ask hard questions which challenge prevailing assumptions. Now, this is something that, authority figures do not like to go ahead and they're not going to teach this. So I was raised Baptist. And they didn't teach this in Sunday school. Like They don't, so people in authority don't want to be challenged. They don't want hard questions. They don't want any questions. Number three, the ability to quickly assimilate needed data from the masses of irrelevant information. Ooh, that's a good one. Number four is the ability to work on teams without guidance. You mean I have to learn how to do stuff on my own without somebody micromanaging me and I have to pay somebody to be a manager of a manager of a manager? Yeah. Like, can you do it yourself? Number eight is the ability to work absolutely alone. Interesting. Number six, the ability to persuade others that your course is the right one. Ooh, you mean persuasion skills? Yeah. Yeah. So people aren't just going to take my idea and they just have to embrace it because I'm such a smart, charming person. Right. You got to kind of sell your ideas in the marketplace. Number seven, the ability to conceptualize and organize information into new patterns. That piece in that book is just it gives stories on all of these things so that it's so cool. So you go ahead and learn how to see a problem in a totally different way. Number eight, the ability to discuss ideas with an eye towards application. You mean I have to actually do something with the knowledge that I have? You mean I can't just go ahead and get a degree and then feel like I'm really smart the rest of my life? Yeah, that's not going to work so much. Number nine and 10, the ability to think inductively, deductively, and dialectically. It's, I didn't even know what those three words, meant. So I looked them up. And there's three different ways for the brain to learn. It's cool stuff. Look them up yourself. Like, so my brain can learn in different ways. Yeah, that's how it works. Yipper. So great book. I'd encourage you all to go ahead and get it. Ben was right. People don't, read my emails and people don't listen to me. So I don't expect anybody to read this thing, which is fine. It's okay. It's just, do you really want to go ahead and help the educational system? Probably not. Do you understand the implication of it? Probably not. The thing that just is weird to me on how certain professions tend to go ahead and get a little pat on the back and people, seduce certain professions, certain genders. I loved in the video where it's like, teachers. Oh, teachers, aren't they amazing? I mean, the educational system is just so screwed up. It's unbelievable. What is it? 60% of the kids can't read. I mean, it's unbelievable. They did a study a while back, and it's like in all the industrials nations, all the top nations in the world, American students have the most confidence. Yet they score at the worst in science and English and all this kind of stuff. So they're the most confident, stupid people on the planet. Like, how is that good? But that's not the teacher's fault. I mean, that's not the teacher's fault. And so teachers, like, so everybody is nice to teachers. So like he comes up with a idea, like he seduces teachers in the video. I'm like, dude, are you really doing this? And nobody sees it because everybody does it. So he seduces. How do you seduce teachers in the video?
He said they should get paid more than they're getting paid and that they're the ones that are raising the future. And
Right.
so
And
to me, it
specifically,
looks like
specifically, he said they should be paid like doctors, medical doctors. Ooh, that's good class warfare there. Like a medical doctor. Like, man, I'd love to put a teacher and a medical doctor together and see, what the medical doctor says to the teacher. Like it's like the poor guy. I mean, he knows how to peel and charm everything, but do you have any economics? Do you have any idea like how that would bankrupt? Like you're just doing it to seduce all the women in the room. Just are. It's okay, I guess. I guess
Economically, I had the same thought. I was like, does he not realize how teachers get paid? Would he be willing to pay out a ton more taxes out of his pockets to pay teachers more? Do I disagree? They shouldn't get paid more? No, they should get paid more, but nobody wants to do it. If anybody would want their kid to get paid more, they could send them to private schools. There's private schools here that the teachers get paid very well. It costs the kids 25,000 a year to go there. Does that individual, is he willing to pay 25,000 a year to have his teacher get paid more? That would be my question.
See, this is really intriguing. Like Dale's courage when he's around me. It's one of the reasons he loves doing podcasts with me because his courage increases. This scares the women in his life. They don't want him to have more courage
Why is that?
because it's a threat to him.
Why is it a threat?
Because you're calling out stuff that they don't want, like pastors, police, politicians, um, women. They don't like to be challenged. They just don't. So they don't want, like when I said, "Did you guys see anything in the video?" Nobody says that. Like nobody points it out until I point it out, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh yeah, I saw that too," which is great. But why didn't you lead with that?
I forgot about that until afterwards. And actually, I was seeing where you go with the conversation, and
Got it.
that was about to bring that up. I just didn't want to,
Nice.
yeah, interrupt you because
Well,
I did think about that after the fact because early on my coffee hasn't kicked in yet.
right,
Wink.
right. Yeah, yeah. So we could go in so many different directions here. Um, Questions, anyone? Thoughts?
I got my questions for the podcast, but I don't know if we want to start that early or what's going on with
Hey,
that.
we might. Yeah, if we're good, if we're done here.
No, yeah, that's the biggest, actually, that's the biggest thing I took out of the video is this guy not understanding the economics of how teachers get paid and what it would do. And there may be a workaround, a way to figure that out, but the 30,000 foot level, I couldn't think of one.
So I've thought of one.
What's that?
So what you do is you go ahead and incorporate technology into it. So the teachers, do they want to go ahead and get paid? I could go ahead. If I built the system, I could get a system where a teacher could go ahead and make far more than a doctor would. But the unions would never allow it.
What would they still be paid by the government, or are you talking about private sector like private schools?
Either way is fine.
Because private schools, it's already an option. They
Yeah,
could go that way already.
either way it's fine. They could get paid more either way. So what you do is you take the best history teacher, the best, physics teacher, you get the best teachers in the world and you go ahead and use technology. So they become like, Taylor Swift. They become like when you go ahead and have a teacher that loves history and knows how to do it, you capture that person and then you license that person gets licensed. So technology can clone that person. Now, why wouldn't the unions? Because it would wipe out so many jobs. And the unions, bless their souls, there was a point at one time for them. Like, but the unions, they go ahead and, they say it's about the kids, but is it really about the kids? No. Is it really about the teachers? No, it's really about the union leaders. Like, it's really the people on the top. If you're a big union person, I'd love to go ahead and do a podcast with you. It'd be a most intriguing podcast together. I mean, you and I would have a lot of fun. And so, in being able to go through that, you take the best of the best and you go ahead and you start using technology. And so much of the teachers is it, I don't know, 10, 20, 80%. You have the 80-20 rule. And so the top 10% of the, top 20% of the teachers do, 80% of the good. The bottom 20% of teachers, the unions protect them just crazy. abusers and terrible teachers and all of that. So you're stuck with 60% of mediocre. They're just average teachers. Nothing wrong with it, but you're an average teacher. You should get paid average. But
The 80-20 rule.
yeah, and so it's entitlement. So it's entitled. I'm entitled to go ahead and work 9 days or 9 months a year and make what somebody makes 12 months. Like, really? And I'm entitled to this and this. And what about when your benefits are far better than the private sector? Well, I deserve that. I'm entitled to that. So we have teachers who are entitled, a system of entitled teachers. And I'm not saying that it's not, a fish rots from the head down. This is not just for the unions. This is for anything big, it seems like. Big government, big business, big education, big religion, big everything. It seems like it started out really, really good. And then all of a sudden, as it got larger, it got more and more corrupted. And so now it becomes about the entity. It's not about the children. It's not about the community. It's not about that. And so, the educational system is terrified of competition because they don't understand basic concepts. Competition makes you stronger, and so it's supporting the weak, so the weak come together and the weak and lazy come together and then they abuse the masses. It's crazy. Other questions? So I know you're all having this question. I can feel it inside of you. It's your subconscious question. Like, Mark, I really feel I want to do something. Like, we talk about it. I mean, we judge. Seems like we're judging teachers. You're judging me. You're judging me. Am I? Like, am I? Or is it an observation and you don't like the observation? So you're going to kill the messenger. So what do we do about it? What do we do about it? So Amy XIE, she's a Chinese lady. And she liked me for 3 months. Why did she like me for 3 months? Because I told her exactly what she wanted to hear. And she liked me. After 3 months, I decided to tell her something she might not like to hear. She didn't like to hear. Ooh, did she get ticked at me? I'm not saying all women are like that. I'm just saying that, it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, it's an interesting thing to think about. Are you one of those people where if people tell you what you want to hear, you like it? And as soon as they tell you something you don't want to hear, then you don't like the person. Are you one of those people? Don't worry if you are. It's okay. You're a normal human being. And so she's all feisty and she's like, hey, you don't understand Chinese people. Like, she was ticked at me. I started laughing. Now, normally I have to advise you all when a woman's ticked at you, like, man, is she mad? Don't start laughing. Like, just don't do it. I can do it though, because I have social autism. I have a disability. So I have a disability of social autism. Hey, I can't help it. It's a disability. So I started laughing. And then she went ahead and I said, Amy, it's interesting because when my oldest daughter was like 11 years old and we were over in Russia, the Russians said, Mark, you don't understand us. When I was over in Africa with my oldest son, they're like, the Africans like, you don't understand us. My wife, when I tell her something she doesn't like to hear, you don't understand. My kids, Dad, you don't understand. Like, anytime you tell somebody they don't understand, that something they don't want to hear, they're all angry. They're just angry, angry people. They're not curious. Like, what do you mean by that? So I'm like, Chinese are same as everybody else. Pastors, you tell them what they want to hear. Man, do they like you? You tell them something they don't like to hear, and holy cow, they will not like you. And so I don't know, a couple months later, we were at a Coffee Connection. Oh, if you're not part of a Coffee Connection, I mean, Dale, he's going to have one of the biggest coffee connections out of Florida. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, it's going to be a monster. Anyway, so doing coffee connections, and she was, it was interesting because a few months later she comes up, she says, man, I hate Canadian people. I'm like, okay. And she's like, can you explain them to me? So people I find people to be interesting. Any other thoughts or questions anybody has? All right. So if you have any questions on anything that we covered, for sure, I mean, share videos, with us. Um, if you have interesting videos that you find, this might irritate. Jim Bontrager said, God offends the mind to reveal the heart. That's an interesting saying. I wish you had told me that years ago. I'd have realized that was a much bigger blessing, from God than I realized. Like, I offend people's minds a lot. So if you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300. Outside the US, 630-393-9909. Always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day.